What's the difference between admiring a book and enjoying a book? Stay tuned. Aloha Booktube, I'm Marilyn and welcome back to my channel. Today is my Friday Reads, but it's a little bit different because I'm going to talk about 3 books I've read and some ideas that came into my head about how you can admire a book and look at it as something very literary and also not connect with it at the same time. I've had this experience with 2 books that I read that I think are great books in their own way, but I couldn't connect with for some reason. And then a book I did connect with. So let's start with the first book that I'm talking about, and I mentioned it last week, and that's Loitering with Intent by Muriel Spark. Now, this is the 3rd book that I've read by Muriel Spark, and I'm still not giving up on her, even though some of her writing doesn't resonate with me. So this was the finalist for the Booker Prize in 1981. So I couldn't decide if it was a farce or nonfiction. Okay, so our protagonist is Flora Talbot, but basically I think it's Muriel Spark. And she's a modern working girl in 1950. By the way, the year that I was born. So it's interesting for me to see what life was like around that time, even though it was in England, not in Brooklyn. But so she wrote a book called Wallander Chase, and this book is repeated over and over in the book. So it's a book about a book, and not a very good book, but I'll get to that. So she, of course, as a struggling writer, she's looking for a job, and she finds a job in this autobiographical society, a very weird society, headed by a cult-like figure. His name is Quentin, and he's very strange. Let's put it that way. So she's supposed to do the editing for the book, and she discovers that these well-heeled members of the society are being blackmailed, or maybe even something worse, because like I said, it's almost like a cult. So like I said, this is a farce, and in the beginning of the book she is frenemies with her lover's wife, which is weird as it is, but this goes into the plot when the lover disappears from the wife's life, as well as from our protagonist's life, Flora Talbot. And Dottie, that's her name, Dottie, and Flora calls her the English Rose, and she has a few people in the autobiographical society that she calls English Rose, and it's not in a complimentary way. So the rest of the book, and I'm not going to go into spoilers, is about the book Wallander Chase, and how it begins to, because she's editing all of these people's autobiographies, it begins to look like her book. They're turning into the book, which is, I guess it's kind of funny. If it wasn't written without editing, I mean, for a short book, there's so many repeats, like I said, with the English Rose a million times. All right, I'm exaggerating. And she has this phrase, Sir Quentin insists on complete frankness. So she says this a lot of times too. The good part is that the well-drawn characters are just described deliciously, like Quentin's mother, who knows what he's like and what he's up to, and she shrieks, has green teeth, long talon fingernails, and pees on the floor on purpose. I mean, she's a great character, and the only one who likes her is Flora. and then she realizes that the woman is not as she wants everybody to think, that she's like off her rocker, as they say in the book. So what I appreciate also is Muriel Sparks' riff on autobiographies in general, and how people aren't equipped to write their own autobiography most of the time. So, but what makes me want to read other books by her? And that is that she throws out beautiful quotes and beautiful ideas that make me think that the writer, Muriel Spark, is a brilliant writer. And I have to get to the point where I'm going to read something by her. So something she says is, to write is to create art, to make something beautiful out of the chaos of life. And I really agree with that. So I really enjoyed all of her quotes that she just throws out there, and makes me think she's a very interesting writer, and I want to read more about her. So that's what I'll say, except to read another quote from her, that from her book, and I'm talking about Loitering with Intent, not Wallander Chase. So in this section, the past 7 weeks, the members who had remained faithful to the association had seen some alarming changes made to their biographies. There was a certain day, late in October, when Sir Quentin told me, "I think your amusing elaborations of our friends' histories have so far been perfectly adequate, Miss Talbot, but the time has come for me to take over. I see that I must. It's a moral question." So basically what she's been doing is changing their autobiographies into something that would be readable, even if it was completely, out of it's not their autobiography at all, and it's funny. She makes it really funny. So she says, and this is the part that I like, "I didn't object, but I had always found that people who said it's a moral question in that precise, pursed way that Sir Quentin said it were out to justify themselves, and were generally up to no good." So, "You see," said Sir Quentin, "they are being very frank, most of them, very frank indeed, but they have no sense of guilt. In my opinion," I had stopped listening. It was only a job. So, if you really want to read this, and, if you like dark comedy and farce and books about a book being published, I do recommend it. But for me, I think that it was just not edited well enough for such a short book. And also, well, that's part of the editing. She repeats herself over and over with the same phrases. So it could have been a better book, but obviously the Booker Prize Association didn't feel that way in 1950. So, okay, so what's the next book that I have the same feeling about, that I admire the book, but I didn't enjoy it? And this is Guadalupe Nettel's Stillborn, a novel. So it's translated by Rosalind Harvey, and it has wonderful blurbs about the book, that she's the greatest Mexican writer. There's wonderful praise for this book, and it's shortlisted for the International Booker Prize. So why do I admire it? I admire it for the formatting that she does to make a book this compact, and yes, tell the story in such a cohesive way and an intelligent way. What is the book about? And I think I talked about it before, so I won't really go into it except to say that it's about two women, and one of the women is Laura, and she's our main narrator, which is part of the problem for me, and Alina. And they both make a pact that they won't have children. Now, Laura has gone to the extent that she had her tubes tied. So she's really, adamant that she doesn't want children. She has many reasons. And then the plot thickens when Alina decides that she changed her mind and she's going to have children. And there's problems in her pregnancy that I won't go into now, but it's the main, one of the main plot points in the book. So the book is about basically motherhood and what that means, mother and daughter relationships, mother and friends, children's relationships, mothers and fathers' relationship with their child, what it means to have a child that that has medical issues and is not so-called normal, and what that does to a relationship. There's a lot in here. Also about how women who might want children, not of their own, but love babies, but don't want to have their own children. So it's a lot about motherhood. And I'm not that interested in the subject, which is odd because I have 4 children. And I think that's the reason that it didn't resonate with me. But I don't think that's the only reason. I admire everything that Guadalope Nettel is trying to do in this book. And what was interesting to me was how she tells the story of the book, the stories that I just said, what the theme was about, but also includes the greater problems of Mexico City right now, and how women were disappearing, and how women were being attacked in the street, and how dangerous it was. And sort of, though she doesn't say it, how that relates to a woman's desire for childbearing. Do you want to bring up a child in that, especially a daughter, in that situation? So those are the things I liked about it. It's very intelligent writing, very short sentences, short chapters, which I enjoy. But I found out by reading Goodreads that a lot of the Spanish women wanted her to go into the subject more to make it a longer book. I don't totally agree with that. So I came away with the book that I admired this writer very much, but I didn't enjoy the book. And then I was trying to figure out, what didn't I enjoy about it? Well, one thing is that I think left me cold is the voice of Laura. I didn't get a real sense of her as a person. And for Alina, her friend, she's the narrator for Alina. So we're seeing the narration of the book through Laura's eyes. The narration of the book is all through Laura. And, how can Laura know what goes on in Alina's mind totally, even if they were best friends? And she goes as far as to say, Alina thinks this. So I think that was part of the reason why the book didn't connect with me, among other reasons. But I will say that I kept on reading. The writing was just superb, and I admired it, but I didn't enjoy it. So let me know in the comments, have you ever had that experience where you admire the writing? The writing is beautiful, but something about the characters or the voice or the story didn't resonate with you? Let me know down below. Now I'll just talk about a book that did resonate with me. And of course, it's a George Simenon book. And it's Maigret and the Dead Woman by George Simenon. And I'll have a copy over here of that book. Now, this book was completely the opposite reaction that I had to the book. I enjoyed this book so much. The plot is very loose. They find, I was trying to say it in French, but the police, Inspector Maigret, Chief Inspector Maigret, they find a dead woman in the street, dead. Somebody knocked her over the head and also, I think, punched her. And Maigret goes, he's almost obsessed with why she died and what kind of person she was. And I'll tell you that the murder itself, or solving it, was beside the point, because what was beautiful about this book was how he goes into the characters' lives, and there's so many peripheral characters in this book that come alive. The girl's mother, places that she lived, characters that took her in. She was a country girl coming to Paris in the time of the book that was written, and I'm really not sure right now if it was right before the war, the Second World War. But I read this book with one of my subscribers, Nathan, and there are so many characters. There's a character in the book that works with Maigret, and he's like a sad sack. He's like, he just wants to be recognized, but yet everything he does has failed, and he has this low self-esteem, let's put it that way. And they call him something in the book, and I'm going to look it up, that phrase that they use to describe this character that works with Maigret, and how Maigret feels sorry for him in the beginning because he just goes on his own and he's trying to figure out what's going on without telling Maigret at one point exactly what he's doing. But of course, we know that Maigret is going to solve this crime. And I love the descriptions of the food, the wine, the like I said, the characters, everything about Paris in that time was described so well. I just felt like I was there. And I think that's what makes a book enjoyable, when you can lose yourself in something that George Simenon, in this case, was trying to do. Now, Nathan told me that at the time that George Simenon was a reporter for the police, so he would take the crimes and turn them into stories. And at one point, he was in the later part of his career, he was edited by Colette, the famous French writer Colette, who told him, make it simple, don't put. So a lot of times there's no he said, there's just you have to figure it out. And I didn't mind that at all. It just made everything very succinct. It made you have to work for it. And I just thought that was a wonderful aside that Nathan told me about the book, because I just started reading George Simenon really this year, or the end of last year. So these are pleasure books for me, really pleasure books. And speaking of pleasure, I have two books here. One that I'm doing a buddy read with Jack from Spread Book Joy, a wonderful booktuber from the UK. And it's the only book I think I haven't read of Barbara Pym's, and that's The Sweet Dove Died. And this is a beautiful cover. I collect Barbara Pym books. So what is it about? Well, it says a quote here: "Life is cruel and we do terrible things to each other. The lives of Humphrey and James Boyce, a seasoned antique dealer, and his good-looking nephew, are changed forever when the elegant Leonora Eyre, like in Jane Eyre, glides into their bustling Bond Street sales room, delicate as porcelain, cool as ice, and in passion bid lands her a coveted book and two equally enthralled companions. So I'm very excited. I'm going to read the first 3 chapters today, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, as well as another question. I have a lot of questions today. I got a book because of Booktube. Of course, I bought a book because of Booktube, and it's Alfred and Guinevere by James Schuyler, who's a poet. And I have no idea why I bought this book, because it's told by 2 children, which usually doesn't attract me, but maybe the fact that he was a poet. And it says that 2 children who have been sent by their parents to spend the summer at their grandparents' house in the country. And Schuyler has a pitch-perfect ear for children's voices, and the story told entirely through snatches of dialogue and passages from Guinevere's diary is a tour de force. That's all I'll say right now. It sounds good, but if somebody has read this book, please tell me in the comments what you thought of it. And should I read this sooner rather than later? It came in beautiful condition, and it's not a new book, but it looks new. And I haven't been buying many books lately. So, yeah. And yesterday I got from the library, so I wanted to chat about this. It's Vancouver and Victoria, Lonely Planet. Lonely Planet books were my go-to when I was traveling, and they still are. And even though this book is a 2020 book, I'm excited. I'm going to, did I say I'm going to Canada? I'm going to Vancouver and Victoria, Canada next month in May. And I've never been to Canada. My daughter says Canada. She kids around. She likes to kid. So I'm going with my daughter to travel. And I'm very excited. I'm so excited that yesterday I did something reckless, because did I tell you I was a reckless person? Sometimes for the good and sometimes for the bad. And yesterday was the second time I went out in a month. And I had a physical therapy appointment that turned out wonderful, but I ended up walking 4 miles, which is way beyond what I could walk. I'm doing fine today, but let's say yesterday was not good. Last night was not good. So I know that I can't walk 4 miles all at once. So I'm going to have to be careful. No, I can do it if I have to, but do I want to? But I heard that there's wonderful transportation in Vancouver, and I'm looking forward to reading more about my upcoming adventure. Isn't reading about traveling almost as good as doing it? For me, it really is. Well, because I love reading. And also, I'm going to have an announcement next week. I'm doing, you probably heard Kim of Middle of the Book March. We're doing an event together, which is, and I'll tell you, it's Mental Health May. And I'm going to have an announcement video coming up early next week, maybe Monday. So that's my chatty news. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do me a favor and press the like button, and subscribe if you can for more rambling, hopefully not too much rambling. And I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye and aloha. Have a wonderful weekend.